Hello crafty friends, it's Jessica here and welcome back to Jessie Kate Creates. In today's video I have a fun project share for you guys featuring the Kokeshi dolls etched dies from Spellbinder. This is part of the Spring in Kyoto collection from Alex Syberia Designs, and Spellbinders very kindly sent me over this die set to play with. They also sent me the fans and bows die set to play with as well, so I will have a future video coming out with this die set, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see that when it comes out. But for this card I was so excited because I just think these dolls are so adorable. Okay, so let me show you the card I made and then we'll kind of get into the details of it. So this is the card and I was so happy with how she turned out. I think she is just lovely and adorable. So with these dies, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, so I started by just kind of playing around and also focusing on the things I thought would be easiest. So for example, the hair, I knew I wanted to cut that out of black, so I just grabbed some Raven cardstock and cut out her hair. For her face and her chest, I decided I wanted to cut her skin out of Alabaster cardstock from Spellbinders, but I wanted to add a little bit of shading. So for her face, I did some very light shading with some distress ink and antique linen, just to add a little bit more interest. And I also wanted to give her cheeks a little bit of blush. So for that, I used a pink ink. I think I used honeysuckle, but I didn't add any ink to my blending foam. I just used what residual ink was left on it, and I thought that was a cute way to add a little blush to her cheeks. Now for her eyes and her mouth, one thing I really like about this die set is that you don't have to inlay those pieces. In the set, it has two pieces that layer behind her face, so that made it a lot easier instead of having to inlay those tiny pieces. So for her eyes, I used Raven cardstock, and for her mouth, I used Pomegranate. So once I had that figured out, it was time to move on to her outfit. I didn't know the exact design I wanted for her outfit, but I went ahead and picked out a color scheme, and I just cut a bunch of pieces out of those colors. So the color scheme I went with was pink. For that, I used the Spellbinders blush, and a deeper pink, which was the Spellbinders Wild Berry, and then I pulled in some classic white just for some accents. So I knew I wanted her main outfit to be the lightest bit, so I went ahead and cut all of those main pieces out of the blush. And then for all of the accents, so the little accents that go on her sleeve and around her waist, the belt of her kimono, the flowers, pretty much everything else, I cut out all these little dies here. I cut out of all the different colors so that I had a lot of options for what I wanted to mix and match and play around with. But ultimately, this is what I ended up with. And I thought this was a really cute design. I went ahead and layered some of the floral pieces. I don't know if they're meant to be layered, but I thought it looked cute layered together and it gave more detail to the flowers. So I went ahead and layered those up, and then I used the smaller ones on her sleeve, and I thought that was really cute. I did go in with a white gel pen just for the insides of the smaller flowers. And for the bigger flowers, I accented their centers by using some Color Essential gems in the color Opal. Y'all know these are some of my favorite gems that I have, so I was really happy with how that turned out. I did the same thing for her hair. I took two of the flowers and I just added those gems into the center of it. For final touches on our Kokeshi doll, I went in with a white gel pen and just added some highlight accents here and there wherever I thought looked nice. Oh, and of course I had to give her a fan. This set has the smallest fan that I think is so adorable, so I cut that out of a couple different colors and went ahead and put that in her hand as well. So once I had my doll figured out, I needed to figure out what her background was going to be. Since she was wearing a lot of florals, I wanted to have florals in the background. So I went ahead and looked through my stash for an embossing folder with florals. Now part of this collection does have like a cherry blossom-esque embossing folder, but I didn't have that. So I just looked through my stash and I found the Spellbinders 4 Petal Floral 3D embossing folder, and I decided I would use this. Now you might notice there is an empty space in the middle of this embossing folder. So I decided I would just use this section on the side. So I took a piece of classic white cardstock and I just embossed this section here. You can see that's why this is only so wide. But you can't even really tell. It looks like it was meant to be that way. And I went in and I added some shading to the embossing folder to make some of those florals pop. And for that, I just used a pink ink in my stash. But I was really happy with the detail that added to the background. And I do want to say just really quick, Spellbinders is having a pre-summer sale right now. And I know this embossing folder, it's normally like 15 or 16 bucks. And it's on sale for $8 right now. A lot of their embossing folders, their 3D and their 2D ones, are on sale right now. So if you're like me and you love a good embossing folder, now might be a good time to add a few to your stash. I will have the link for that, along with the links for everything I've mentioned in this video, in the description box down below. Now, since I only had a small section of the background, I needed to figure out what the rest of the back was going to be. So when I initially got this die set, I did a little bit of research because I was not familiar with Kokeshi dolls, and so I wanted to learn a little bit more about them. And I saw that traditionally they're made out of wood, so I decided to make a wood grain background. Now I'm going to cut to a little scene where I show you how I made that background really quick. So this is the wooden background I have already made, and we're going to make another one together here. So this is the Spellbinders ColorWheel cardstock in Fawn, and all we're going to do to make wood grain is drag ink across our paper. That's it. It is so simple. Now, these are going to be the inks I'm using. I'm going to use the same inks here that I used to make this piece, so you can see how I did it. Now this piece is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I believe, and this is just a little leftover scrap I had. But anyway, when I initially made this doll, I think I may have already said it, but I cut her face out of the Alabaster cardstock, and I used a little bit of antique linen just to give her some shading. So when I was making the wood background, I wanted to use some of the antique linen as well, just to tie things together. How well does it actually tie things together? I don't know, but it sounded good in my head when I was doing it. So the other inks I'm going to use for this are some of these little tiny inks from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm going to use the color Warm Buff and maybe just a little bit of dough. And I wanted to keep this wood a lighter wood. I did not want it to get too dark. If you want to make a darker wood, you can start with a darker paper and you can use some darker inks, but I wanted to keep this pretty simple. If you have mini ink cubes, I would recommend them for this technique, but if you don't have them, that's okay. You can still do this with a full pad. So all you're gonna do, I use this for another project and not some alcohol ink at the bottom, but that's okay because no one's gonna know. The same thing was on this one and you can't even tell. You're gonna take your ink and you're just literally gonna drag it. In some places you can press down hard, other places press down light. You can try angling your pad when you swipe it. You can try starting from the middle. But there you go. You can try using more of the edge versus using it more flat. But there you go. And you can see you're starting to get that wood grain. Again, I don't want to get too dark with this. So that was Distressing Antique Linen. Next, I'm going to come in with the Pink Fresh Studio Warm Buff. And same thing. With this color, I'm using a much lighter hand. Because again, I don't want this to be too dark. And to get these little breaks that looks like wood starting in the middle, you just literally start by dragging instead of starting at the edge of the paper, and you get those little marks. Okay. There we go. All right, now for the last color to add a little bit more contrast to this, I'm going to take dough, and I'm going to use this very sparingly and with a very light hand. I think this does help really bring it together and make it all look like wood to have one slightly darker, more contrasting color, and that's going to be it. And ta-da! I think I used more dough here than I used in the original piece. That's okay. But now we have wood grain, and it's just that simple to make wood. Now, something I didn't record, since I saw that a lot of these dolls are made from wood, I went ahead and cut out one of these dolls from the wood grain behind the floral panel. And so a couple days later, I was kind of playing around with the idea of maybe like hand painting some florals onto it. I'm not a painter. I'm not a great artist, so you can see this is really rough, but it's probably the best of my abilities. So hopefully I will have some time coming up in the next few weeks where I can actually paint these wooden dolls, but that's just an idea for you on another way that you could use this die set. Okay, so once I had my wood grain background, I went ahead and added that to the card, and then I just put the floral background over top and the Kokeshi doll right in the middle. Now for the sentiment on this card, you guys are not going to be surprised by this. I used, once again, the Spellbinders Space Greetings die set. Again, I've just really been enjoying this die set because it has a lot of just really good everyday greetings for cards. So I chose Happy Birthday, and I cut the words out of Wildberry, and I cut the shadow out of Classic White. Now for the dimension on this card, the background is adhered directly to the card. The floral element is adhered directly to the card, but the doll and the sentiment are both popped up on a little bit of foam tape, so they do have some dimension to them, and I really like the way that looked. So once I had the front of this card done, it was time to move to the inside, and I had a bunch of extra florals. Like I said, I cut all these florals out of multiple colors, so I had a bunch left over. So I went ahead and added them to the inside of the card just to create a little element that would tie the inside and the front of the card together. And I was really happy with how that turned out. So that is my card using the Kokeshi Dolls Etched dies from Spellbinder for the Spring in Kyoto collection. I had a fun time making this card, and I hope you guys had fun watching this video and getting inspired by this collection. If you liked this video or it sparked any creativity within you, please go ahead and like the video. That helps me out so much. It helps other people to find me here on YouTube and join our crafty community. And if you want to see all the videos that I put out, then be sure that you subscribe to the channel, and you can also ring that notification bell if you want to get notified every time I post a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!